Coffee and cream, bacon and eggs, pancakes and syrup.
Let's take a look at traffic and weather together.
Traffic and weather. Yeah. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio. Updates all day long.
General things like that help me get through my day.
Before you head out, get together with our traffic and weather. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways that you can get at us. Just see the show for yourself if you want to, particularly over on our social media, do the whole video thing. And, well, it might be nicer than just looking outside here anyway today. I got to tell you, I stepped outside after being inside this building ever since it was a nice little breezy morning, and I step outside and get hit in the face with a dirt clod practically. Though didn't have the worst of it by any means. If you had a trampoline in your backyard or anything that wasn't literally a part of the ground, you might not have it anymore, as we have Leroy Chuck joining us over on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. The one thing that I was really floored to see, and well, would have been more floored if I'd been outside for any longer, may have gotten blown over, was how much, power outages caused, and not because of the whole, random limb hitting a power line kind of thing, but the literal power poles. Check out this picture over on our stream for our news partners over at KFOX 14. I believe this one courtesy of El Paso Electric, of a couple dozen power poles either bent or completely knocked over down in the Mission Valley area, Clinton, Socorro specifically. Just sheer force of wind just blowing over these solid pieces of tree. So if you're wondering why your power was out or flickering earlier today, there's your answer there. Thankfully, here at the station, we were doing pretty well. But I just stepped outside into another world when I finally went and checked it after seeing that picture here. So I hope you're staying safe out there. Those power does seem to be restored now, but yeah, just a real bad one out there. But in the meantime, we got plenty of other things that we are focusing on here today. Again, focus on elections, of course, continues because, well, we are in early voting season. If you've already gone out to vote, let me know by commenting over there on our pages or giving us a call a little bit later in the show. We do have let's talk about the way the politicians are talking about them. Some interesting analysis coming out alongside some of that further polling that has been put out. The one that shows that, yeah, Abbott and O'Rourke have a pretty good luck on their respective primaries, expectation-wise anyway. When it actually comes out to Election Day remains to be seen, but also some more about the values and the actual interests that voters are wanting to see, and if the politicians that they are inclined to vote for are, well, actually delivering or not. Plus, some early statistics about how the turnout is actually looking in our area here. Plus, continuing our series talking with the candidates that are going to be on this primary ballot here. Going to be talking today with El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, Democrat representing the Texas 16th Congressional District. She does have a challenger on this upcoming ballot, so reason we're focusing on that. And also, there's that whole if you want to buy a house, stop getting coffee and skip the avocado toast. Well, there's actually a reason that might stop you from getting a house here so much, as shipments have been suspended from the only area of Mexico allowed to import to the U.S., and prices might be going up there. John Brow's letting us know he's back from a stint in Facebook jail. Good luck with that. We have no control. We don't ban anyone unless we violate our very, very simple rules against spam and constant profanity. That's all we've had to do in the past anyway. So glad you're back with us here, because that's a not fun place to be in, but hope you get your campaign ribbon coming out of that here. This is why we're on multiple pages these days, by the way, because even just a flat discussion of the issues can sometimes get people banned. There was literally an account I'm aware of in the general political sphere in the nation that was just posting screenshots of other people's comments, and they are the ones that ended up getting banned. So selectivity, there are certainly issues here, which is why we handle it the way that we do here. So let's set a baseline here. I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that a majority of the votes in El Paso, or at least so far, have been cast within the Democrat primary. Specifically, according to the EP County Votes website, looking at about 3,500 so far votes cast, or those that have been returned from the mail-in ballots on the Democrat primary, and about just shy of 1,400 when it comes to the Republican primary. So roughly, let's call it 2-1 at this point, a little bit more in favor of the Democrat side of things when it comes to the actual ballot. So this is why it's important, if you are interested in the representation that means, to make sure you go out and vote here. We have still got quite a few days of early voting left to go, a better part of 2 weeks here, then of course Election Day coming up itself on March 1st, which is that Tuesday of, well, a few weeks from now anyway. The way that politicians have been talking about the issues, do they actually have an impact on, well, voters? Again, that polling coming out from the University of Austin, more just about what is going on within the actual, likely races, challengers, etc. The one that does show, amongst other things, that Abbott has within about a 10% lead over O'Rourke in that presumptive general election ballot. But more specifically, interesting analysis coming out, Texas Tribune amongst others, but you can even see the data from yourself there from the Texas Politics Analysis Project and the University of Texas in Austin about, what politicians are talking about, the things they're stumping about, amongst other things, the entire tour that was launched by the Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke campaign out of El Paso, the Keep the Lights On tour, focused on, well, last year. What happened around this time when we had that winter storm that knocked millions of people offline for extended periods of time. Serious concerns came with that, but then, of course, my contention was, in light of the not being a repeat with this winter storm, even if it's not exactly an apples-to-apples comparison, what have you done for me lately is pretty persuasive when it comes to politics. And frankly, Democrat voters may not be buying that kind of line of reasoning anyway. Again, according to that polling number, only about 5% of Democrat voters have that as the most important problem facing the state, as in the grid reliability and such here. And only about 3% of voters total have that as their most important one. I mean, even just within the Democrat Party, political corruption and leadership and COVID-19 and the response to it were some of the first-tier choices. So makes you wonder if the way it's being talked about, particularly when it comes to those wedge issues we have discussed, is that actually enough to drive voters either A, within the party itself, as we're talking about the primaries coming up right now, particularly the candidates that you've been hearing on our air. Some of them I could have sworn I heard notices of coming into the program right now, trying to find that little bit of crack of daylight in between, well, sitting governor and his base. But is that actually addressing the ones that they like? Frankly, Abbott has done, I've said for the longest time that you should not underestimate him. He has been a political animal within the state for decades now. And to think that you're just going to go and, whack him over the head, sucker punch him was not a good strategy. And that's bearing out, particularly since on the statewide ballot for Republican voters, immigration and border security is the primary issue. 31% of all voters and more than half of Republican voters, and that's the one that is pretty much the continuing theme through most of Abbott's campaign advertising, the roundtables he has been hosting, focusing on different issues of that. So if anyone's really, really hoping to really drive that wedge and make it effective, they might want to pay attention to this kind of information, because if you're saying, all of this stuff is probably pretty important, but in order of importance and what's actually going to drive people out to vote for you and, well, within our community, to the polls in general, is an important distinction to be made. John Brazelton over on the comments bringing up Congresswoman Escobar. Again, we have that interview coming up for you here right now, actually. So we're going to go ahead and take that first break of the hour. And coming in as we are 4 to 6 p.m. these days, first break of the show, to come back and have that interview recorded earlier today with Congresswoman Veronica Escobar on some of the major things we've discussed on air, primarily on infrastructure and immigration, border security, those kind of concerns. We get into it a little bit here, so we got to take that first break already. Again, a lot of ways to interact with the show. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch to tune in and chime in over there. Calls a little bit later. Again, coming up, talking with more of our candidates and people going to be on the ballot here shortly. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Electric is still working in the area, and that earlier road closure that remains on Socorro Road is still in effect, east and westbound at Isaiah. The roads, all lanes are closed. They're all 4 lanes. I-10 eastbound after Artcraft, you could expect delays down to Thorn, stop-and-go traffic with about 10-minute delays. On the 10 Frontage Road, northbound at Red, an injury accident, Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
It's Ram Truck Month at Silent Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. The all-new Silent Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Silent Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is still fun. At I-10 at Silent Park Drive or online at silentparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR, 1389 per thousand finance. Also have vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Hey, Texas! We want to remind you that it's election season. In Texas, you'll need an approved form of ID to vote. Visit votetexas.gov to learn what types of photo ID you can bring to the polls and what to do if you don't possess and can't reasonably obtain one. And if you're eligible to vote by mail, learn about the requirements and how to identify yourself on your ballot by mail materials. So visit votetexas.gov today and get vote ready.
I'm KTSM 9 News anchor Natasha Paloma. Well, here at KTSM, many of us were born and raised here, and people should care about local news because these are issues that affect you and me. It's what we feel. It's real, and it affects us right here where we live. We are the Borderland, and that translates to our culture, our heritage, and to stories that you won't find anywhere else. That's how we get to the heart of the story, and that's why we put local first.
KTSM 9 News, putting local first.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're on these days, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of stuff that we get to here on these shows, as we have Louis Pinato, John Brazelton, Leroy Chuck, and more tuning in and chiming in over there. And just as a quick note, since the question has come up here from Louis, as often does here, that how we do these interviews, there are a lot of politically engaged people in our audience here, but there's also a lot that just flat out aren't. So these interviews, particularly going into the primaries, giving at least like a baseline, what is important to these candidates? What are they campaigning on, to make your own decisions about it? So I've long said that we do our own thing on this program. We're not with respect, replacement, anything. Any of the other programs on our air here, we want to have the conversation. So during these interviews, what I seek to do is to understand what they're talking about, and then we'll talk about it. Probably end up opening the phone lines at the end of this interview as well, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of input. So this is your chance to chime in about it, is the takeaway you should have in mind as we're conducting these. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, tell us if you don't buy it or you're on board. All of that is kind of the purpose in getting into these. So again, had the chance to sit down via phone with a Congresswoman Veronica Escobar representing El Paso as a Democrat in the Texas 16th Congressional District. And well, a lot of commentary already coming up here. So we'll just get straight into this interview, talking to her about some of the primary issues coming up in this campaign. So here's that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Congresswoman for El Paso in the Texas 16th Congressional District, Veronica Escobar, Democrat. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Wonderful to be with you, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's been a minute since we checked in here. And of course, we are in election season. Early voting is underway now for the primary coming up. And so some of the recent things that we have talked primarily about yourself in ruling infrastructure and the issues involving border security. But just in brief, what are some of the major issues you feel that have been the highlights of what you have focused on in this current and previous term of office?
Well, thanks for that question, Andrew. I've actually had a pretty diverse and broad group of issues that I've been working on. Through my work on the House Judiciary Committee, I've worked on gun violence prevention, immigration reform, antitrust issues. With my work on the House Armed Services Committee and as the representative for Fort Bliss, I've worked on infrastructure needs of Fort Bliss, making sure that we have a modern, ready force. So modernization and readiness have been key issues for me, along with issues around military personnel. I serve as the vice chairwoman of the Military Personnel Subcommittee, and I'm so proud of the work I've done to get major reform around sexual assault, sexual harassment in the military across the goal line and signed by the president. Also worked on veteran and service member suicide issues and a number of other military personnel issues. With my work on the Select Committee for the Climate Crisis, have focused a lot on the climate emergency and innovation and legislation around that. I also serve on the House Ethics Committee. Most members of Congress actually serve on 2 committees. I have the privilege of serving on 4. So we have a very robust list of priorities. Also included in that is healthcare, working on an economy that works for everyone, not just the select few, taking care of our seniors, our veterans, making sure we're trying to lift children out of poverty, helping families. It's a pretty long list of work that I've been doing.
Absolutely here. So some of the recent ways that our audience anyway may have heard from you directly would have been on the infrastructure, the American Recovery Act, and the resulting pieces of implementation in our local area with that. You having had a couple of news conferences within the last few months here, including a good representation of our local elected officials, including the mayor, county judge, other members of the state delegation, etc. So some of those points we've been making there are around the idea of how that implementation of, again, that act that was signed would then affect us here in the region. What are some of your focuses on that, and what would you say are your goals when it comes to seeing how that would impact our area?
Great question. I am so proud to be the only member of Congress in our region, the only member of the House of Representatives in our region to have supported and worked for the bipartisan infrastructure law. So neither the representative next door in Texas 23 nor the representative on the other side in New Mexico voted for that legislation, which will be significant. It means $35 billion coming to to Texas rather. And I want to make sure as much of that comes to El Paso as possible. That's my goal. There's really 2 components to that law. The first component, about half of that money will be traditional infrastructure, things like roads and highways. And so the El Paso Metropolitan Planning Organization and the city and the county and our other localities, other municipalities like Horizon City and others, we're working to make sure they have all the information necessary in order to access that money. But because it will be coming through the state, it really is going to come down through formula funding. So that's about 50% of that money. The second part of that infrastructure funding will be in the form of grants. And so we have been basically working to prime our local governments and other folks who could be recipients of that money about those grants, to make sure that our community is ready to apply for them, that make sure that we're competitive, make sure that we are alerting the agencies and the administration about our needs. So as an example, we had a great conversation that I set up for our local governments to speak with Mitch Landrieu, who is the White House designee on the infrastructure projects, the former mayor of New Orleans, who oversaw lots of money to rebuild New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. So I'm making all those connections for our community so that we achieve the goal of bringing as much money home as possible.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, Democrat representing El Paso in the 16th Congressional District of Texas. If you want to find any more about her herself, you can, of course, go to escobar.house.gov and find some of the current things going on. Is there a particular campaign page people can visit if they want to find more about your priorities and what you're running for re-election on?
Yes, thanks, Andrew. It's my name, basically, veronicaescobar.com.
All right. So one of the other major issues besides infrastructure, which we all feel when out on the roads, absolutely, it has been border security, immigration, everything that is involved with our position in the country and in the world that comes with it. And this has been one of the more controversial issues that has happened. I mean, we have seen a lot of changes, even in just this last term of office, in implementation, how the administrations have handled them respectively, and the serious burden we have seen resources strained in our region and across the entire sector of the border. What are your priorities in addressing that, and what do you feel that you have accomplished so far?
Thanks, Andrew. That's another great question. So as you've mentioned, we've seen really since 2014 an increase in Central American families arriving at our nation's front door here in El Paso. And as you've mentioned, it's been tragic for them as families, and it's been challenging for our federal government and especially challenging for the community. Although I have to say, I've been so proud of El Paso, which always leads with goodwill and with generosity. Our community has always worked to help support those migrants in their time of need. And so I think El Paso really has set the national example about how to live our values, how to live those foundational values. So I've done a number of things. Number one, in terms of oversight, I have brought over 20% of Congress to El Paso. I want them, I wanted Congress members to meet with law enforcement, but also with advocates and lawyers. I've taken members of Congress over into Ciudad Juarez so that they could kind of walk the same path and understand the process of what migrants go through, but also what everybody in the system experiences. So my oversight role, I think I'm the only member of Congress who has that kind of record of bringing that many people to a border community for true oversight. The second thing is I've filed pieces of legislation intended to address this holistically. So I filed, and last Congress passed out of the House of Representatives a DHS reform bill that would increase accountability and transparency and oversight over what has become massive bureaucracy, the Department of Homeland Security. Secondly, I introduced this Congress a reform bill around asylum processing. We are also working on a reform piece of legislation around ports of entry and processing asylum seekers, but also ensuring safety, security, commerce, and efficiency at our ports of entry. We have to do, so I've passed legislation. I've also worked with the administration, and here's what I've told them. We have to do a number of things in order to address migration. If we're addressing migration at the border, that's already a sign of failure. And it's been multiple administrations that have not adequately addressed this. So this is unfortunately a chronic issue. But we have to, number one, address root causes. Number two, work with the Western Hemispheric leaders for whom this is a shared obligation and a shared responsibility. This should not just be the United States responsibility. Canada, Mexico, the Northern Triangle and other countries need to come to the table, and we need an agreement and a framework. The Biden administration is doing just that, those first two items. And so I'm pleased to have been in great conversations with them on both those issues. Number three, we need comprehensive immigration reform. We have passed a number of bills out of the House of Representatives. The Senate has failed to pass those bills. It's been deeply frustrating. But Congress has a role as well. And, the Senate has absolutely failed to act. And then I would say reform the processes in place, which my legislation does pretty comprehensively. So it's a multifaceted approach.
So you focus a lot on the processes and kind of the back end of it here, but of course a lot of focus happening on here even recently with the visit along our sector and other sectors of the border by Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. In that instance, him calling for additional resources for the enforcement agencies here and additional technology infrastructure along border security lines when it comes to addressing that side of the issue. So you talked a lot about the migration, but when it comes to the actual, either personnel or, infrastructure security efforts, what is your perspective and what do you want to see done when it comes to that?
So I did mention that with the processing, because right now, as I mentioned, my processing reform bill has been filed. That actually gets Border Patrol agents back to their role and takes the processing out of their hands. I think the worst thing that we've done over the last decade is allow for mission creep with Border Patrol agents basically being given added responsibilities and duties of taking care of families, taking care of children. They're not trained to do that. That is not their mission. We've got to make sure that they stay focused on their job. The vast majority of their time should be spent on things they're trained to do, not things they're not trained to do. So my asylum processing reform bill actually helps accomplish that. That will, in fact, I've spoken to a number of leaders within Border Patrol who support my legislation and think that it will make a pretty significant difference with morale, but also will lessen the strain on their personnel resources. Now, as far as investing in technology, I have always supported, for example, new radios, modern technology that helps agents and law enforcement out in the field. But I also have called for body cameras. Every modern law enforcement agency that believes in accountability uses body cams. DHS needs to as well. So, but the administration agrees, and that's going to be a part of it. So, yes, my work includes reform and investment as well on the law enforcement side.
Again, guest right now has been Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, Democrat representing the Texas 16th Congressional District out of El Paso. Again, want to find anything more about her or her campaign here at veronicaescobar.com. So, Congresswoman Escobar, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us about your campaign, the issues, and some of the hot topics in our area here today.
Thank you, Andrew. It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Again, thank you to Congresswoman Escobar for taking the time here. A lot of comments coming in a lot about this, and we will certainly get to those and more. We're going to go ahead and open up those phone lines right now. So if you wanted to call in during the show, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Again, this is your chance to sound off what you agree with, what you like, what you don't like. All those aspects we'll take on. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. Topping our news today, a powerful windstorm blew into the Borderland this afternoon, downing trees and power lines and causing power outages. The hardest hit area was in the eastern part of El Paso County. 24 power poles were downed or leaning in Clint and Socorro and San Elizario. About 1,000 El Paso Electric customers were affected. The powerful wind gusts are expected to last until 7 p.m. Our COVID-19 situation in El Paso continues to improve When it comes to cases and hospitalizations, 183 new infections were reported today. This same time last week, we already had more than 1,400, and currently it's only 695. The death toll rose by 10 today, and hospitalizations dropped by 4. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our wind maker and our cold front will eventually shift off to our east throughout the night, and that is going to leave us with lighter winds, but still breezy to gusty at times, and cooler temperatures. So we'll be waking up to some breezy weather for your Thursday, but we should see those winds begin to die off by late morning. As far as those cold temperatures, we do have a big drop in temperature as we see the return of highs in the 50s and lows below freezing.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. Whether you want to learn Spanish for future travel plans, French to connect with extended family, or maybe German to land a new job, Babbel works because it's built around real life. It teaches you everyday practical conversations that you'll actually use. All you need is 15 minutes a day, and you'll be on your way to confidently speaking a new language in just a few weeks. Babbel is designed by real language experts using a modern conversation-based technique that makes learning fun, engaging, and best of all, memorable. It starts by teaching you words and phrases. Then sentences gradually get more complex. Soon you're practicing short conversations about real-life topics. And with 14 languages to choose from and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll be sure to learn what matters most to you. Babbel, language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brakemasters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being a Brakemaster shape. Download coupons at brakemasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Brakemasters, we give you an honest break.
This report is sponsored by Brakemasters.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages here. A lot of questions and comments coming in right now, and a lot of opinions coming in on our social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Fully expected here, and so we'll be taking up some of those here, but also have that phone line open for you to sound off that way, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of people also mentioning the other side of this race here. Again, in this interview series we're doing ahead of this primary election, we're focusing on those competitive races. So there are a few out there mentioning the, Republican side of the ballot here, specifically that about Irene Armendariz Jackson, who is going to, except for catastrophe, I guess, be getting the nod for the Republican nomination for the Texas 16th Congressional District here, and also some calls for debate like Emily Balboa, Monica Chavira, and more. Milka Berenice Bermudez reminding everyone that's early voting, go out and vote right now. Absolutely. But just, again, clarify here, there will that's the very strong potential for there to be the general election ballot. But right now, we're talking about the ones that are going to be competitive in this race. And for the primary ballot, we are looking at Veronica Escobar versus her primary opponent, DMB, who we previously had on the show here. So if you're wanting to go back and see that one, we, of course, have that interview up over on our page. Yeah, DMB here, if we had on the show, Delirious Montañas Berrios. So more information on that race here. But we got interviews coming up with those who aren't going to be part of this series immediately after the election, because we got more than a couple, including that potential challenger for the county judge. So don't worry, we have not forgotten about those other candidates. Well, they're not going to be candidates at that point. They will be the nominee. Very, very likely. So that's what we'll be getting into. So just in case there's any question about that or how we're handling this here. Again, we had some of the questions, and this was a pre-recorded interview for answering some of the questions out here. But y'all have a lot of comments here. Catherine Cordry saying, how about enforcing the immigration laws that we have? Taxpayers are footing the bill to support and transport all the illegals at the expense of taxpayers. Some other points, Leroy Chuck asking, why is gas so expensive? And other points being made, James Radcliffe putting up a few here as well, calls for a debate amongst other things coming in. Some questions about previous statements here. Maria Coleman with another point here. Sorry, she has accomplished very little for the El Paso area. Climate issues are not a primary issue for many Americans. She has continued to facilitate illegal immigration and supports the White House agenda or closure of the pipeline. And so a lot of comments coming in this way. Again, seek to understand in these interviews, and then we can certainly talk about it. So there's a lot more comments coming in here that we can even get to. We'll hope on a few more here. Victor Navarrete making a point. Hope you can follow up with Congresswoman Escobar on the border crisis. She criticized President Trump when we had 30,000 migrants detained on emergency, yet she has been silent these days with over 2 million migrants detained in 2021. Again, important note just about that number as it keeps coming up. Those were encounters that, still a staggering figure. And this is not to say, so it wasn't that bad. If anything, gets worse. Because, think about it, these are the amount of times that Border Patrol is having to stop and deal with people. And if they end up being the same people, because they were just Title 42 being the only policy in effect at many points over the past year, they were just returning them straight back, and then they were coming straight back. There are some instances of stories coming out of some of the, underage coyote assistants, I guess you might want to call them, being on a first-name basis with some of the agents because of the frequency of them having to see them do it's just messed up. So, again, not a better situation. Just let's get the facts straight here. Irene Armendariz Jackson actually commenting here, saying, ask for a debate in 2020 in Spanish. So I'm not opposed to focusing on that more, again, once we get out of this area here of the primary election here. So a lot of questions here coming up here. Again, just to the question from Marlon Espinosa, this was a pre-recorded interview as we were scheduling this in the day here. So we'll talk more about this. But again, your chance to comment and chime in right now. The number to call in on our line is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do we have a caller on the line here right now? You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hello, this is Monica.
Hi there. What's on your mind?
Oh, no, I was just concerned as to why Veronica Escobar hasn't bothered to have a debate with Irene Armendariz Jackson. She's been actually requesting to have that debate for even the primary election before this one, because Irene Armendariz Jackson ran the last election as well, and she hasn't really responded to see if, they can both give a debate in front of the El Paso people. And so we wanted to kind of question as to why she continues to deny that, if there's any way that we can have that debate.
I find myself very in favor of there being debates. I want to say the last one that was held within this specific race, the Texas 16th Congressional District, was probably a couple of cycles ago. I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong out there, it was Veronica Escobar when she was facing down the Republican opponent of Rick Seeberger, if I'm not mistaken, was the last debate I can recall happening here.
Yes, that might have been one, correct. And we've been all trying to ask to see if maybe Irene and Veronica could have that debate. Unfortunately, they weren't at that moment available to debate, but we would love to see it. The people of El Paso would love to see a debate between both so we can be able to accurately see who would be the better candidate for this next election. And so we would kindly ask Ms. Veronica Escobar to please accept a debate with Irene Armendariz-Jackson as her opponent for District 16.
I mean, again, you're not going to find me saying, no, we don't need to debate that. That's my favorite pastime, what we do on this show. So complete agreement with you there. Would love to see it happen, facilitate it as best we can. We're a radio show, but hey, more in-person stuff can possibly happen. I will be very interested to see the follow-up there myself and what maybe we can do to make that happen, because I fully agree, debates are the ways, one of the best ways, that the electorate can figure out and weigh the values, principles, policies being put forth by their elected officials. And sure, necessarily being able to make a firm point about a policy position isn't the best judge of it, but if you can't clearly communicate what your policies, your priorities are to the electorate, that's kind of in the job description of a politician in my mind. And so I would find that persuasive to be able to be done. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure and come on in, and hopefully we put a little pressure on both ends, and hopefully we can get that debate. Oh,
absolutely. Appreciate the point in the call there. You have a good one.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right. Because, I mean, I would be the biggest fraud if I said, no, we don't need debates. Like, yeah, bring on the debates. Let's do it. That's literally how this show actually started. Back in 2017, when we had the mayoral election, we had the candidates in here on air with us, interviewed about their interests, what they're running on for office, that kind of a thing. And then we had a forum. Not sure what the heck the possibilities are going to be, particularly as we get closer to the general election in November. My crystal ball gets really cloudy once we look that far out these days. But hey, let's make it happen. Let's do this, because having debates and getting into the issues, kind of the lifeblood of the way our country works and our electoral system. So yeah, you're definitely going to find support of that for me as well. There's some commentary coming in on all of this here, but we'll get into more of it here. Again, we got calls coming on the line if you want to. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Due for that next break right now, but we'll get to more of those calls. A lot more comments coming in. Definitely a lot of input that y'all want to have. So let those over on the social media if you want to. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Otherwise, phone number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back in a minute.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, you got 4 or 5 minute delays. Loop 375 southbound between Liberty Expressway down to Iron Medics, you got a couple minute delay there. Loop 375 southbound at Edgemere, watch for a disabled vehicle. It's blocking the right shoulder. And that road closure remains. All 4 lanes closed in both directions, east and westbound on Socorro Road at Isaiah. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Hiring can be a headache. That's why there's Indeed, the hiring platform that removes the hassle. Sponsor a job and immediately get a short list of quality candidates. And you can schedule and conduct video interviews right on their site. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Here's Joe Biden's strategy for the border crisis.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed on my administration. In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all.
Biden's reckless border policies have emboldened dangerous drug cartels. Listen to Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border. That's why Governor Abbott's deployed the National Guard to assist law enforcement at the border. He's given us new authority to arrest trespassers. He's increased jail capacity to handle criminal arrests. Joe Biden should be securing this border, but he won't. That's why Governor Abbott is getting the job done.
Governor Abbott is endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. On March 1st, vote for Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
So the dream was to build your very own law practice. Be your own boss, call all the shots. But have things like billing, HR, timekeeping, and all the other management stuff turned your dream into a nightmare? Take charge of your practice with Lexicon. We're the intersection of practice management software and legal support services for your firm. You'll get more billable and livable hours back. Lexicon marks the spot for all your practice management needs. Visit lexiconservices.com/intersection to get the whole story or schedule a demo.
Mass Mutual knows retirement can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Who's the big boy?
You are.
car.
Who's gonna take care of us when we retire?
It's gonna be you.
You're gonna make sure we don't end up in a retirement home.
Or if we do, it's a really nice one.
With tango lessons.
And bocce ball.
And a community pool.
Oh. Talk to us about retirement today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live Mutual.
Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of things we're focusing on here today, including the issues affecting us in the Borderland. But again, interview coming up the heels of our interview for this interview today. We did have Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, Democrat, representing the Texas 16th Congressional District, El Paso, or, well, an increasingly small portion of El Paso County when it comes to the redistricting that happens. So it might pay to pay attention to where you live and where those districts are. It used to be only kind of the southern ends, like once you start getting into the Mission Valley, like Socorro, San Elizario kind of area would be within the 23rd Congressional District. Tony Gonzalez, who we had on the show previously this week. So just pays to pay attention here because those are competitive races on this primary ballot. And, of course, with an eye towards then the general election. Interviews scheduled on those races coming out of the primary here, but just for this series, focusing on those ones where there are opponents on the ballot because there's still just too many races where there is just not another challenger. Don't take anyone on the ballot as it is, but still just, yeah. Would love to see more here. A lot of comments coming in about our interview today. A lot of people wanting to get their 2 cents. Since James Ratcliffe, Maria Coleman, Rudy Rivera, John Brazelton, Kathy Cordry, Marina Armendariz Jackson commenting here about the debate issue, Louis Panado, and a whole lot more. So, Leroy Chuck a little bit earlier saying that nothing said about inflation. I mean, we talked about 2 specific sets of issues here, immigration, border security, together, immigration / border security, the way I think of it, and then, of course, infrastructure, because that has been a focus here, but we got a lot more, some comments coming in over from the YouTube as well. Count calling us a filthy animal. Let's go back to the Trump immigration policies. We had a record low illegal immigration. I mean, there's a debate to be had about all of this. They're always in favor of debate. You're never going to find me saying, no, let's not debate that. So we got at least one or a couple of calls here on the line that we'll get to. Again, the number to call 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Do have Arizona Richard in the Northeast on the line with us right now. Richard, thanks for joining us.
How you doing? Good show again. Good show. Enjoyed the conversation and enjoyed the interview. And to build on that, to echo what you're saying, I do agree. I do agree that we should have some debates about the issues that are forthcoming, and we respect to both sides of the aisle, even though I am left. I want to hear some concrete discussion about what plan. I mean, we're all concerned about the national politics, but as my name suggests, I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona, but I've made my home in the Borderland since the 90s. So I'm invested in what's going on here. I've seen a lot of growth. I've seen a lot of issues come up and what we can look forward towards the future. And so that's kind of what I want to build on. And I'm abstaining from all comments that you're getting, right versus left, left versus right, Biden versus Trump. I mean, that gets old because we get enough of that on social media. We get enough of that in the media. What concerns me is what's going on here in the Borderland and El Paso. And I think you touched upon a few things about the border. That's a non-ending discussion. But we need to have some rational, logical discourse on that. Not what you read on the other side of the media, per your political affiliation, some good concrete discussion. And I'm challenging your listeners, whether they're calling in, they're online, whatever, to why don't you pursue that? Let's have some healthy debate. I'm a strong proponent of that. I hope to see that in the future. And I think you, being a representative of El Paso and the Borderland, I think you're the tool and the instrument that can promote such that. And I think you have said that in so many terms. But I'm here to back you up on that. And I'll continue to call in to weigh in on these things because they're important to us. They're important for the nation as well.
Absolutely. And just to make that further point there, we are going to be having more of the county commissioner candidates, primarily on the Republican side of the ballot for that Texas, for the Precinct 4, rather, I should say, one day. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it here. Yep, talking about the issues, the way it affects us here in the borderland, getting past the kind of clutter that comes out of the partisanship with it, because underneath, I think that this is important, I think this is more important, we got real lives and real people being affected by it right in our region. So do appreciate the point and the call there. Try to squeeze in another quick one here right now. Again, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this? Maybe we don't have someone there. All right. Well,
hello. Are you there, Andrew?
Yeah, we're here. Who's this?
Yeah. Okay. This is David Central.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just wanted to say that, you know, I feel sorry for migrants. You know, I just seen 3 that were caught by Border Patrol right there on the Executive Center in Paisano, and really I feel for them because they're young people and they're looking to make have a better life. I mean, do better and all, you know. Mm-hmm. So I feel for them. But you know what gets me is all the talk. You know, I mean, they get better and better. Like, say right now, I heard that interview from Veronica Escobar. Boy, they get polished. You know, they get better and better at their speech. To me, they're well rehearsed. But the thing is, like she mentioned about other countries and getting together at the table, and that it shouldn't be just a U.S. responsibility. And I'll tell you, I think when it comes right at the end of their discussions, whenever they get the little round table going and stuff like that, it'll always be that they'll be sending more money to these countries. The problem's over there. I mean, it really is. I mean, I'm not informed enough to know how many billions of dollars have been gone from here to Central America to South America. How much money has gone out there? But they really just, these countries, for some reason, I think that I think we can assume that the leaders out there, that somehow they end up with pocketing some of that money and all. It just doesn't get to industry and all. It doesn't better people throwing money at them, you know. I mean, sending money out there, trying to help them out that way, and that's what this lady, that's what this Escobar. I mean, what else would she be able to do? But I think there's some triangulation, and I mean, it's very simple-minded and all. You know, we used to have the theory that we would want to have migrants out here so that they could work the farms, take jobs that Americans won't do and all that. But I think just another simple-minded idea is that really, really, I mean, as incredible as it is, I think these people really are wanting to make this here we got the biggest border now. They want to make this Texas place Democrat. And at one time, and I'll just do this briefly. When the caravans first started coming out this way, they used to say, "Hey, well, they seem organized." And sure enough, because I watch Mexican news also. The organizers of the caravans who were wearing these black T-shirts, white lettering, said in English, it comes down to countries without borders.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the coordination on full display when it came to particularly the Haitian incident that happened towards the end of last year. We're going to have to take that quick break right now, but we'll continue this conversation coming out of it. Again, you're listening to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. We just got to take this top of the hour news, so stay on the line here if you want to, or call in 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back in a minute with more.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, you got 4 or 5 minute delays. Loop 375 southbound between Liberty Expressway down to Iron Medics, you got a couple minute delay there. Loop 375 southbound at Edgemere, watch for a disabled vehicle. It's blocking the right shoulder. And that road closure remains, all 4 lanes closed in both directions, east and westbound on Socorro Road at Isaiah. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
It's Ram Truck Month at Solar Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. The all-new Sunland Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is still fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. Zero APR, $13.89 per thousand finance. Also like vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House still believes Russia could attack Ukraine at any time.
That would be preceded by a fabricated pretext that the Russians use as an excuse to launch an invasion.
Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters an attack could come in many forms and layers. She said the door continues to be open to diplomacy. Psaki also noted that widespread cyber attacks in Ukraine are right out of Russia's playbook. Wild weather is expected to fire up overnight across the southern plains. Strong thunderstorms packing hail, high winds, and possibly tornadoes are expected to form across Oklahoma and Texas. Places like Oklahoma City, Dallas, and Tulsa could be in for a long night as the storms move through. The severe weather threat increases and shifts east Thursday. Hillary Clinton is responding to reports that her 2016 presidential campaign paid operatives to try and infiltrate Trump Tower servers and servers in the White House. Clinton tweeted that former President Trump and Fox News are desperately spinning up a fake scandal to distract from Trump's real scandals. She added, the more Trump's misdeeds are exposed, the more they lie. The reports are rooted in special counsel John Durham's ongoing investigation of the origins of the Russia investigation. The man accused of selling a gun to the North Texas synagogue attacker will stay locked up. Lisa Taylor has more.
The federal judge issued the order regarding Henry Michael Williams, saying he was a danger to the community and a flight risk. Federal prosecutors argued Williams should have known Malik Akram was going to hold people hostage when they met last month for the sale. Akram later attacked Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville, Texas, holding 4 people hostage. The hostages were later able to escape, and Akram was shot to death by the FBI. Williams is accused of being a felon in possession of a handgun. He's expected to go to trial in April.
You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. New York Attorney General Letitia James is issuing a consumer alert about the malicious use of Apple AirTags. Erin Real reports.
Apple AirTags are small tracking devices designed to help people locate their personal items. According to the AG, bad actors have been using AirTags to track individuals' locations and their belongings without them knowing it. People have reported finding unknown AirTags attached to their cars, purses, coat pockets, and other personal property. The AG recommends people listen for unfamiliar beeping and watch for item detected near you notifications on their iPhones.
Nearly 24 people are recovering after a school bus crashed in southern Missouri. The State Highway Patrol investigating the crash says the bus driver veered off a state highway after returning home from a basketball game late Tuesday night. Reports show the bus crossed the highway multiple times before hitting several trees and flipping on its side. Missouri police say one student suffered moderate injuries and 17 others were treated for minor injuries. This week marks 3 years since the remains of a Florida teenager were found, and police are still searching for answers in his death.
Jabez Spann was 14 years old when he went missing after a family Labor Day party in Sarasota in 2017. Relatives believe he witnessed a murder before he disappeared. The teen's skeletal remains were found in February 2019 in a rural area of Manatee County. No cause of death has been revealed. A $50,000 reward is still being offered for information leading to an arrest in the case. I'm Rick Hoschel.
A mystery animal brought to a Pennsylvania shelter is being identified. Wildlife Works in Adams County say they initially couldn't tell if the animal was a dog or a coyote because it was suffering from mange. Wildlife Works was able to identify the animal as 100% coyote, but the animal ultimately was able to escape the shelter after chewing through a window seal. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Family. That's family. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by the new Our American Stories podcast.
Check out the new Our American Stories podcast, the show where the American people are the star, telling inspiring stories of history, sports, business, faith, and love, and your stories too. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others?
I do.
I do.
And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, and Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in, a lot of interest in our topics here today. Hope you all staying safe out there with that wind going on. Those couple of dozen power poles going down in the lower valley. Just pot a picture up again real quick. Someone else calling it, that's like Groundhog Day for the Borderland, means we got that 6 more weeks of wind coming. Video just up from our news partners, actually looking at it right now, KFOX 14, showing one of those above ground pools blew away and was hanging from a power line at Missouri and Solano up in Las Cruces. So stay safe out there, and if it's not bolted down, you might make sure you still have it if it's outside at all. So that's just some of the things going on. But again, major topics focusing on the election, looking at some of the early voting numbers, about 2-1 in the Democrat versus Republican primaries so far, but plenty of time left to go in getting those votes in, and make sure you have your plan to vote. And again, our guest interview today with El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, Democrat in the Texas 16th Congressional District, and a lot of comments coming in on those. Couple of lines of reasoning going on there when it comes to voting and issues with it in our area. Let me just make it plain on my thinking when it comes to that for our region, when we have had, again, in our last 2 elections, I say this enough, I should have it tattooed on my forehead at this point, 3.5% and 4.5% voter turnout in our elections. No one needs to cheat to be able to do anything what they want in this area, because no one's voting, and they know it. That is my primary gripe. So you want to get into some technicalities. There were certainly some things that should have been handled differently when it came to the last election. But if you're going to say, oh, the reason things happened that I don't like is because it's all just cheating, like, come on. I reject the black pill entirely and resoundingly, particularly in our area. We need to get people out to the polls. The elected officials know that barely anyone pays attention. Again, even in 2020, one of the biggest elections of our lifetimes, or in living memory, there are absolutely barely breaking half of the registered voters in our county here. James Ratcliffe asking, why did Wise return thousands of ballots? If you're referring to what has happened with I believe it's in the numbers actually in the hundreds of the vote by mail applications that we're not using the new form. Again, raise all the questions that you want, but know what you're talking about when it comes to this. We have a voter apathy problem before anything when it comes to our area and this county. So get it straight when you're talking about what the issues we are and what we have in our local area. So if you're using this as a justification, this is where it gets me really mad, to say that, I'm not going to bother voting. Miss me with that all day long, because again, you better be going out to vote. I have been this close to saying, hey, you better be saying, I want you to swear to me that you have voted. again, if you're just, you better be going to vote. I don't even care what you're saying about what is going on in the back end. If you're not even bothering to take that small step to go out to vote, all of it sounds so much like cope to me is what it comes down to. But let's not get too sidetracked on this. We are talking about elections. We are in the early voting season right now. We got more calls in the line. Again, if you're wanting to call in during the show to comment on these various issues, the number to do so, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Do have Raul in the Northeast in the line with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. About your guest, the challenger to Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, Miss Dolores Montañez Berrios.
Yes.
You know, I listened to that interview. She sounded good. I was somewhat impressed by what I heard. But she's been outed as a Dino by a friend of mine who closely follows local politics and blogs about it. Her positions sound very Republican based on his analysis of her information. We have too many Dinos in El Paso run for office. I think all elections should be partisan. I really believe voters deserve to know the candidate's politics and not be allowed to hide behind a label. And in my ideal world, no one who could not vote for a political candidate should be allowed to contribute money to those candidates. That would help prevent the purchase of local politicians from interests outside of our community. It happens throughout the country. It's very, very wrong, really. And today, in today's news, in El Paso, a federal judge postponed setting the date for the trial of the Trump-incited terrorists who killed 23 people at the Cielo Vista Walmart. And I commend Congresswoman Escobar for her statement that racism and xenophobia put a target on our back, fueling the violence that was inflicted on us on that date. And there's a false equivalency. You and your gun buddies out there have a false equivalency between guns and cars. You know, you don't buy cars to shoot things and animals and people. Like people buy guns to do those things. Gun nuts and Republicans think that kids at risk of being shot at school is the cost of freedom. And they would rather ban books than assault rifles.
Okay, I appreciate the generalizations you're making about me, along with the rest of this here, but let's look at simple facts here. A lot of people say, oh, we should register cars like we do guns. Even people on the proponents of further gun control say that, oh, let's make it that kind of a thing. You can't just go out and buy whatever you want, but that falls flat as well on its analysis here. And again, let's make it very clear what I said when it came to the intended use of the device. The intended use of the device of a car is to drive, and yes, the intended use of the device of a gun is to shoot something. How it is then used that way, well, that makes all the difference, whether it comes to, shooting targets, as I have often done, or shooting at a crowd of people, which I have never done, or driving on a road down normally, or driving into a crowd of people. So let's make it very clear about the intent of the device and the intent of the one that is using it here. So if you want to continue with that analogy here, false equivalency, yeah, to say that you could only buy what is very, very tightly regulated by the government when it comes to a car, a lot of people would be crying very foul about that here. And again, if you're talking about the court date that has been set, we are looking at a 2023 court date here, and I don't think I agree with your analysis about how it is being postponed for any kind of partisan reasoning here. Again, as of last year, looking at March 6th, 2023 here. But all right, getting to more calls in the line here. Thank you for the point in the call in general. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. I was listening to Glenn Beck this morning, and he was talking about the $73 million Sandy Hook settlement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one with the Remingtons. Well, some analysis I've been reading further into that might not be Remington itself, but rather the insurers representing Remington in this case.
Exactly. And do you know what the ramifications of that is?
Again, that's a decent question. I am not a lawyer. This is not a legal analysis, but from my reading and from my understanding of these similar kind of situations, it does seem kind of like a stopgap and a stop, essentially the bleed kind of situation. The idea of the moneyed interest in this case not wanting to just go any further and frankly not leave the jurisdiction of Connecticut where this was occurring. But that's just some of the stuff I've been seeing and reading and making no sense to me.
Well, one thing that Glenn Beck brought up, and unfortunately they have finally succeeded in getting rid of the Second Amendment and our right to buy arms. And the reason why is because this sets a precedent, and that now all insurance companies are going to be on the hook for anything that happens. If somebody sells a gun to a person, if they end up shooting somebody, or there happens to be a manufacturer that has ammunition that somebody uses to kill somebody, these people now can go after the insurance companies, and the insurance companies are, if they are going to be hit that way, the insurance is going to be out of sight for these people to have to carry insurance. And so the gun manufacturers, the people that sell guns and everything, are going to go out of business because they do not have the money to pay for the insurance to defend themselves.
I mean, I take your point there that this will have serious impacts, but I hate to have to tell you this, that has already been occurring even before this. It's been very much in the background, but I have some friends who are more in like the banking and finance kind of industry, and there has been quite the movement for years now to basically deplatform firearms manufacturers in general, even in just access to banking. So this is not a new effort, and there are things on the books such as the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which the question had come up, why would this not be applied here? And that also then brings up the question of why did then they just keep the jurisdiction within Connecticut itself as to not even allow a challenge to that? I'm not privy to the legal details here, so I couldn't tell you exactly, but here's the expectation I have. I mean, I do think this will have serious impacts. I don't think this is going to effectively end the Second Amendment, but I think this is going to have some serious impacts on the way we are then displayed when it comes to this area, because you got to also remember, this case was not on the fact that this firearm was used in this. It was about the advertising going into it. Again, some of the questions brought up about then the Mexico suit, how that could play into it. We might get into it at a later point here, but I think that potentially we might see a total clampdown now coming into basically media related to this. That is my expectation in the short term, but I mean, there's something I'm keeping an eye on anyway when it comes to what this is going to mean in the long term.
This sets a very serious precedent. It will, I mean, yes, it's been talked about, and they've been trying to do that through the banks and things like that, but now it's a matter that is going to hit the insurance companies that are going to have to cover the people that are selling these guns, selling ammunition, and it's not. And the insurance is just going to skyrocket.
I mean, I get what you're saying there when it comes to the insurance, but we're already looking at other nascent industries, even those coming to the borderland here or the New Mexico side of it before too long, with, say, marijuana. Those are largely unbanked systems. So I'm not saying that I'm happy about what has happened here. Objectively think that as a matter of course and rule of law, it's a good precedent to be set for any industry to be able to be sued into oblivion entirely based on advertising. But I will say that there are alternatives. We've seen it such thing with social media platforms, those saying that we don't like the restrictions we are under, finding other ways to do it. I still have a lot of faith in the free market, and even though there are, again, very specific interests opposed to this, I do think that there are more potentials than for moving around it, frankly. The innovation is a way to get out of a lot of things in my mind here. But again, take your point that this is serious, and I take it as seriously as it is intended to be here. We got to take that next break right now. But coming out of the break here, we are going to get more into these issues and more of our subject here today that could get us in the Borderland. So thank you for the point in the call. We will take more calls on the line. That number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Out in the Low Valley, that road closure from earlier this morning still remains. All four lanes closed. Socorro Road, east and westbound at Isaiah. I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza. An accident with police on the scene there. I-10 westbound at McRae Boulevard. At the McRae exit, accident there with police on the scene. And the 10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, it's slow and go with 5-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Looking for a great deal on blinds, shades, and shutters? Save 50% off any order during Blindster.com's President's Day sale. Blindster offers custom wood and faux wood blinds, roller shades, cellular shades, even custom plantation shutters. And they're all 50% off for a limited time. Blindster.com.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes make a big difference for the environment. Did you know that keeping your tires even a single PSI lower than recommended means worse mileage and more trips to the pump? So do the environment and your wallet a favor and always check the tire pressure. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips on smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
Friend Sean Hannity, and with the election on the horizon, well, you've got a lot of important choices ahead of you. But let's not talk politics for just a second and focus on your home. Now, I'm going to make this very easy for you and tell you the one agent whose marketing plan is in a whole different league than anyone else you will talk to. I'm talking about Brian Birds, brokered by eXp Realty. Now, Brian services the entire El Paso area, attracts hundreds of buyers every week, and sells hundreds of homes a year. Now, because of that, if he can't sell your home at a price and deadline that you agree to, he'll buy it himself. He offers you a one-day listing agreement. If after one day he doesn't live up to his end of the contract, guess what? You can fire him and pay nothing. Call the only agent I would call in El Paso. Call Brian Birds right now at 751-1500. That's 751-1500, or online at brianbirds.com. That's brianbirds, BURDS.com. Go there and you can start packing.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Who, me? Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today. A lot of focusing on some of the issues, and of course, the focus on what affects us here in the Borderland. So elections, those wins, stay safe out there. I really hope I had a folding table set up in my backyard to do some yard work with, and I'm kind of hoping it's there and not like through my window when I get home a little bit later, but we'll see. So just stay safe out there. But also, again, our guest today was Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, representing the Texas 16th Congressional District as the Democrat for El Paso. And so a lot of questions coming in here. John Brownson making a point about benefits of public office here, specifically a congressperson serves 5 years in office and then they receive a federal pension. And also a question that came up about the compensation for county commissioners. I actually realized that I have the wrong idea in mind. I think I had it from the last time I covered the budget negotiations of about 100,000, like 110, and then 90 for county commissioners. It's actually significantly higher than that. Just as a note here, county commissioners make 114, just shy of $115,000 per year, and the county judge makes $131,000 and change a year. So I was wrong on those numbers. This is why it always helps to check it out there. So yeah, that is, well, again, the stark comparison to be drawn then when it comes to city council, who make on the order of, I believe, 30, 35. But, you know, might want to double check that too now that I think about it. Also, a question that came up earlier from one of our previous callers about the amount of money being sent to particularly Latin and the Caribbean and Latin America. According to report I was able to find here real quick, the Congressional Research Service, that at the very least, this one ending in fiscal year 21, that the amount of assistance sent in the last year of the Trump administration anyway was $1.4 billion for Latin America and the Caribbean in general. So that has changed various over the years, but it's a lot. It's looking at the graph of it here, it hasn't been particularly below $1 billion in adjusted for 2017 inflation dollars for literal decades. You got to go back to the 50s to find that. So it's quite the chunk of change here. All right, getting into more of the comments here and more of the calls. Again, the number to do so if you want to call in, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Call line's full up at the moment here, but getting to more of those comments, we do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon.
Afternoon there. What's on your mind?
Yes, with regard to your interview with Veronica Escobar, I see no mention of her wanting to enforce existing immigration laws that are on the books.
I guess that wasn't, I mean, yeah, there was a lot of focus on some of the newer or the initiatives she's focusing on here, but I mean, it's very clear the perspective she comes at here. I mean, there was some question about some of the other issues she brings up here. So just going down her campaign website, just reading them out here, the priorities, as she puts, just as bullet points: standing up for the border, protecting and expanding our economy, supporting immigration reform, protecting the environment, improving quality of life, expanding access to affordable health care, improving veteran services, and protecting seniors, the disabled, and working families are the priorities she is putting out when it comes to this next term of office and why she is seeking re-election here. So yeah, focusing on, I mean, that we kind of got into that a little bit, I guess, in the last point in the question there about resources and ability to do enforcement, but that is pretty clearly, I think, safe to say, not been a focus of her term of office.
Next point, thank you. But next point is this: when she mentioned, and other people mentioned, comprehensive immigration reform, all that means is a pathway to citizenship for a great deal more illegal illegal foreign nationals. That's what it means. President Biden said that in his first 100 days in office, there would be no deportations whatsoever. Well, let me throw some figures out there. First 100 days in office, you had over 600,000 encounters of these illegal foreign nationals. Okay.
Yep, that bears out with about the overall numbers. Again, looking at that 2 million number when it came to, it's not totally just 2021, but the year is encompassing 2021, the months around it, yeah.
Yes. Okay, and my favorite part of the program, I do need to respond to that Raul character. He likes to use the word gun nuts. Once again, people of his ilk tend to focus on the object and not the person. But if you take his argument to its logical conclusion, my guns have killed. As a matter of fact, my guns haven't done any harm to anybody. Alec Baldwin has done more harm with his gun than my guns have ever done. If you're taking it from the point of focusing on the object, okay. Now, as I've said before, we need to enforce the laws that are on the books. Punish criminals, lock them up. Lock up these people who commit crimes with guns. Don't coddle them. Don't say, "Oh, we need to look into the criminogenic factors that cause them to do this." Everything's a psychological perspective now, and this is really ridiculous. And I can tell you that from experience, having been in law enforcement and corrections for 32 years. But that's my point.
I mean, again, the thing I keep coming back to is that if every gun in America was an inherent danger and a problem in and of itself, irrespective of anything going on around it, everyone would be dead already. I mean, there is literally, some of the facts and figures, at least depending on the reporting, you believe, between one gun for every 3 people or 1 gun per person within the United States. So if the ones sitting in safes and locked boxes and hopefully secured properly were the issue here, you would know it. And just the idea that, well, they can be dangerous, therefore you got to get rid of them, is kind of like being, well, someone got bit, therefore you should remove your teeth, and that's the only way we'll all be safe. It just, I don't follow the logic there at all.
Well, yeah, if people take that logic, once again, well, get rid of the bleach in your house, get rid of your bug spray, get rid of your other pesticides that could cause a potential death. And my last point, Andrew, is this. Hey, I'd like to say to Raul, hey, I'll debate you anytime, guy.
We got a lot of interesting debates coming up here. We got to look at doing some in-person events, and maybe we'll be able to get that going here, because doing this kind of format on a radio show doesn't quite work out for debate, but I mean, I think we need to do more on that, so stay tuned. We'll see what we can come up with. But otherwise, thank you for the point in the call. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm ready. I'm willing.
Absolutely. As are plenty of others, I do believe, is the case here. We're going to try to get at least one more call here right now. On the line, we do have Stephen on the east side here with us. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hello. Hey, I like your show. Thanks.
I appreciate it there. What's on your mind?
I just kind of a general comment, and then maybe a specific example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes I tend to be on the conservative side. That's kind of my point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, though, I'll hear people who are, you can tell they just kind of live in a little bubble. They don't know the other sides of the argument. They don't kind of research both sides. They argue against straw men, or, you know, they don't have a wider perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to encourage people to always look at both sides of the story. You know, people bring up Raul. He's like the left-wing version of that, lives in a bubble, listens to his people on his blog, MSNBC, and just has no idea what the strong arguments on the other side are. He brings up this shooter, Walmart shooter, who's in the news recently.
Yeah, today, as a matter of fact. Yep.
Yeah, so what people don't know about that guy was he also, in his manifesto, he talked about there's too many humans on the planet, and humans are destroying the environment. We need to kill as many humans as possible. And he got bullied in high school by some Mexicans, so he wanted to shoot them. So from, you know, one perspective, you could say, oh, environmentalism is what inspired this person to shoot people. Or that other shooter, Bernie Sanders, inspired that other shooter. So, you know, Raul has this Trump derangement syndrome. And if you look in the encyclopedia, I think his picture's there for Trump derangement syndrome. And people need to get out of their bubbles and look at the other side, is all I'm saying.
Absolutely will agree with you on that point here. One of the reasons I felt the need to us put this kind of show together, so thank you for the points in the call there, is because I don't think social media, I mean, we're on social media. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite that way, because we still want to reach people, but I don't know if on balance, social media, and particularly the echo chambers that are formed out of it, have been a benefit to society and our nation specifically in general, because of the way they only want to show you what you want to see. And if you're of a particular political persuasion, you'll only tend to see that persuasion. I mean, it's why we end up with statements, well, no one I know thinks differently, as if therefore there couldn't be anyone else who does. Guarantee there are. And it's one thing to say, and I disagree with them, another say, and therefore they are inherently wrong. The debate, again, coming back to debate and to talking about the values, the marketplace of ideas, and the ability to have a civil discussion, but also retain your convictions. These are lost arts these days. So I hope if anyone comes out of this that there are other perspectives, they're worthy of investigating, and it is possible to entertain an idea without accepting it. That is something I feel like I get the most flack on. My conviction that that is possible, and why we talk about the things that we do. So again, thank you for the points in the call. We are overdue for that next break right now, so we got more calls on the line here. Leroy Chuck putting himself up as the straw man of everything we just talked about here. We'll get into that and more after the break. More Talk El Paso. Number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. Topping our news today, a powerful windstorm blew into the Borderland this afternoon, downing trees and power lines and causing power outages. The hardest hit area was in the eastern part of El Paso County. 24 power poles were downed or leaning in Clint and Socorro and San Elizario. About 1,000 El Paso Electric customers were affected. The powerful wind gusts are expected to last until 7 p.m. Our COVID-19 situation in El Paso continues to improve when it comes to cases and hospitalizations. 183 new infections were reported today. This same time last week, we already had more than 1,400, and currently it's only 695. The death toll rose by 10 today, and hospitalizations dropped by 4. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Look for an accident I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza. Police on the scene there. I-10 westbound at the McRae exit ramp. An accident there with police on the scene. Dyer at Hamilton. An injury accident with medical crew on the scene. Copia or McKinley Ave can be your alternates. And downtown Stanton at Texas Avenue. Police responding to an accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our wind maker and our cold front will eventually shift off to our east throughout the night, and that is going to leave us with lighter winds, but still breezy to gusty at times, and cooler temperatures. So we'll be waking up to some breezy weather for your Thursday, but we should see those winds begin to die off by late morning. As far as those cold temperatures, we do have a big drop in temperature as we see the return of highs in the 50s and lows below freezing.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Hiring is hard. Luckily, there's Indeed. The hiring platform makes it easy to attract, screen, and interview candidates from the same place. Just sponsor a job. You'll immediately get a short list of quality candidates on Indeed. Visit Indeed.com/credit to get started.
It's Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. The all-new Sunland Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is still fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. Zero APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. Also with vehicles with free credit. Offers not combined.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gather in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Check out the new Our American Stories podcast, the show where the American people are the star, telling inspiring stories of history, sports, business, faith, and love, and your stories too. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the new Our American Stories podcast.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to participate in the show. We got those phone lines open right now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in. It has been a very fast and furious show. The Skeptic Squad live kicking and beating all the hell over there on the various social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Raul Amaya, James Radcliffe, Leroy Chuck, Matt Olson, Adam Fautich, or the Tooch, right way to say it there. Among others, some of the others, Erica Moreno, John Browse, Lisa Maria Kalman. It's just, there's so much more that I can even get to here. A whole lot of things to get to in all of this here. So we got those phone calls, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I just want to make a quick point there. Leroy Chuck, saying facetiously, I assume, that I only get my news from Facebook here. And that is a terrifying statement, but it's also not necessarily impossible. I will be honest with you. a lot of the sourcing, even of topics for this program, does come from my social media, but you got to do it in such a way that you're consciously choosing to see things that are not just exactly what you want to see, exactly what appeals to you. And of course, Meta has had some of its stock troubles recently, but let me give you an example of the things that they think that I am interested in, try to show to me. And I think I kind of broke that algorithm. It started getting weird enough that I started taking screenshots of it. So I got an ad for investing in apartments in Islamabad, becoming a Federal Bureau of Prisons teacher, getting a copy of the Talmud, the Torah, or the Quran, death metal shows across the state, or becoming a starting my own successful career in super yachting, or buying the Black Fellowship Collection flag. That's just some of the things they show to me. So I think that it's more specifically that they don't know what I want. They just know I feel strongly about something, so they keep throwing things at me. And that's the way, my social media works anyway. Not any particular like or dislike for any of those, but it does start becoming a what the hell is going on there. So I think that also explains partially why there have been certain social media platforms that have been losing big in the stocks lately. Anyway, we got more calls on the line here. I do have a call on the line right now. Again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Do have Johnny over in Central here right now. Johnny, thanks for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon.
Afternoon there. What's on your mind?
One thing I can say about your show is I might be thinking about calling and talk about one subject, and then some of your other callers in and they bring up interesting facts too. And by the time I get in, all I want to do is just pepper you with some things, because I know you don't have enough time to respond to all of them. So I just get right to it. Mm-hmm. On the voting thing, I voted. I went right out and voted early Monday. And I had mixed feelings. I always do. I love early voting. I don't like waiting until election day. But anyway, I was a little bit disappointed on both sides. The bad side was when I got there, was hardly nobody there. I thought the place was closed down, but the voting signs was out there, so I knew voting. So I was in and out within however long it took me, about 10 minutes to do my thing. What I'm saying about the bad part about it, I was sorry that I was glad that I got in quick, but I was disappointed that there was no one voting. Like you say, if you don't vote or whatever, you don't have anything to say if something goes that you don't like. I'm talking about the people out here in the community all around the nation. And you met a couple of your one of your callers mentioned something about debating. I would love to see some debating take place on the show with different members around the city. It would be nice. Some of our other shows had from time to time. And this gun fixation thing here in our country, one thing I can say about the autocrats, I don't like anything about autocrats, but one thing I can say, I know we're not having the type of gun shootings that we're not having. They're not having in their country because they rule everything. I'm quite sure no one has guns. So sometimes our freedom that we have, we abuse it. And the AR-15, the AK-47, I heard one of your callers say that he had a combination of roughly 30-some years in military law enforcement. Me too. I did 20 years in the military, and I got out and found out that there was not enough money. I had to go back to work, and I carried a gun again. And luckily, I'm blessed that out of those almost 40 years, I never had to kill anyone. So, but here in our country, and I would never even dream, and I know a lot about guns, I would never even dream of owning an AR-15 or AK-47. Nowadays, I don't even leave the house with a gun anymore because the wife don't like them, so we might carry some mace. So I leave my guns in the house just for our own protection. So this fixation just drives me crazy. And one other thing, then I get out of the way and let some of your callers comment. I feel that I'm sorry that I missed the Congresswoman in your first hour. I didn't know that you had her. I would like to have heard what she had to say. So I appreciate if some of them would come on to a show like yours and voice their political thoughts. And there's so much toxicity between the two parties nowadays. I've never seen in my life where there's been so much name calling against our president, against our senators, and so forth. So the respect is gone. Not only what I don't like is the politicians are the ones that set an example, name calling and stuff. I don't know if you see in your shows early. I mean, I call them colleagues because they're on your station. But during the day, I try to listen to them, and they are something else. They name call, and I'm at the point where I don't even like to listen anymore because I try to look at the both sides too, and try to draw my opinion. I'm not pro-party at all. I'm pro-person. I want the person to go and do what they say they're going to do for us. If they can't do it, get out of the way and let someone go in. That's my thoughts. That's enough, Andrew. You can talk now.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. No, I mean, you're bringing up good points there. I jump in if need be on other points here. So, I mean, yeah, on the name calling, we've often got called out on this show that we shouldn't allow the name calling we do here, but unfortunately, that is kind of the state of modern political discourse here. But I'll abide it for the most part, as long as someone can back up what they're talking about. If they're just saying that, I hate this person, they are so many bad names I can think of here, okay, then that's just ranting. You're just ranting at that point that you don't like this person. And we have, I think, at least one other call coming up here later, because we do have that pound 250 system. People can leave us calls that way along those same lines. But as long as it serves a discussion and you're making an actual point here, that's what I find more useful than not. But again, maybe that's just me in this day and age. But to the point about guns then, I mean, we keep coming back to this because, I mean, I have a preference towards, I'm fascinated by the mechanical nature of them, how they work, and then the impact and, frankly, massive changes that we've seen in world and even just this country's history because of the development and usefulness of them. I mean, it is foundational in a lot of ways here, but I do think there are people out here that take it to, they become fetish items for them, that they are then almost not quite graven images, but damn sight near. And so when it gets to that level, I start having additional questions about how that person thinks about things in general, maybe not associating with them. But I think that there is a lot of other agendas that also come into, frankly, most of this issue of persons saying one thing and then doing another that just gets well out of hand when it comes to all of that. So I do thank you for the point and the call there. Do appreciate it here. Rounding the bend towards the end of our show here today, we'll take a couple more calls as we're coming out of this next break here. Again, the number to do so there is 915-544-5876 for KTSM. Otherwise, those pound 250 calls and our guests and future things coming up here for this week and for coverage. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Look for an accident I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza. Police on the scene there. I-10 westbound at the McRae exit ramp. An accident there with police on the scene. Dyer at Hamilton. An injury accident with medical crew on the scene. Copia or McKinley Ave can be your alternates. And downtown Stanton at Texas Avenue. Police responding to an accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Panera. Hold on to your mugs because Panera's Unlimited Sip Club is offering the unreal deal of unlimited coffee for only $8.99 a month. Sign up on the Panera app today to get your first month free. Panera, the familiar made fantastic. Availability and pricing may vary.
Here's Joe Biden's strategy for the border crisis.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all.
Biden's reckless border policies have emboldened dangerous drug cartels. Listen to Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border. That's why Governor Abbott's deployed the National Guard to assist law enforcement at the border. He's given us new authority to arrest trespassers. He's increased jail capacity to handle criminal arrests. Joe Biden should be securing this border, but he won't. That's why Governor Abbott is getting the job done.
Governor Abbott is endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. On March 1st, vote for Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply. And then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we got coming up for you on the show here as well. Of course, we got elections going on, and we'll be talking even further about that when it comes to things like, some of those most competitive races. Specifically tomorrow, I'm going to be talking with the Precinct 4 County Commissioners Republican candidates for the nomination there, hoping to go on and then challenge, possibly, the incumbent is Carl Robinson, Democrat for that seat, but he's got his own challenges as well, but still focusing on the Republican side of the ballot here at the moment. So we got that coming up for you tomorrow. Some of the other things in the works for future weeks as well. Working on maybe some of those statewide campaigns. Just stay tuned for that. Can't confirm anything just yet, but y'all have asked and we're working on it. Plus, some of those economic trends. We've talked a lot about what is going on when it comes to businesses looking to move, relocate, reinvest, buy up here in the Borderland. So we'll talk with one of those that has been in the news recently as of, putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to actually investing here and what that means, why the decision was made, all that stuff going into it. So we'll be getting into that and a whole lot more for you here in the coming days. Again, we'll take another caller or two here towards the end of the show. The number to do so, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. But also, even if you can't get at us during the show or have a burning comment or question you want to get to us, I've got an email address, andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com if you want to, or that pound 250 line. That is the way you can leave us a comment recorded day or night. You have to do it on a cell phone, but the simple way you do it is you dial pound 250, pound 250, or hashtag 250 on your phone. Call it like it was a phone number. It'll ring. You'll then say the keyword Talk El Paso when prompted, and you can leave your own message, much like this.
This is for Sir Frankie. I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. None of that at all. I don't have any derangements. None at all. I do have a deep abiding conviction of pointing out evil and stupidity wherever I find it. And it just so happens to be people like the Donny Dotard doofus and all the doofus supporters. Yeah. Well, I don't have any Trump derangement. Nothing.
And gullible isn't written in the dictionary. Any case, if you want to leave your own message, you can do so. Pound 250, keyword Talk El Paso. But, okay, let's be rational and then could take that to its logical conclusion then that, looking at stupidity wherever it comes, and yet what we're talking about, the topic's often brought up is, what are these specific individuals doing? So I'm not saying that you are necessarily full on there, but if there's a spectrum is a popular phrase these days when talking about mental conditions, it seems that you might be on there, maybe to the low end, but still, you're further along than, some others here. Jokes aside, the ability to only say, only the side that I disagree with can do wrong, and only the side I agree with can do right, is just not how reality works. There has never, and I mean never, been an elected official that I have found myself agreeing with 100% of the time. Tend to vote on, do I, in the balance, agree with them at least more than their opponents do, if I then choose to end up voting for them. But this idea that, I like these guys, I'm on this team, it's as close to a hack of the human psyche as you can get. This whole, you want to put it another way, balkanization, or even just the tribal instinct that we have. Those are the guys against us, therefore I must go against it. We even see in some of our comments here these days about how, I don't like these guys, therefore even if they're doing something that I might like or even benefit me, I have to find a reason to disagree with it. I take on each subject as it comes and deal with it on its own merits here. And there also is an argument to be made that our electoral system doesn't really work that way, because we do elect representatives that you are signing on to them for that term of office. So there's a lot of reasons it happens, but for the most part, I find myself saying, what does this mean for us here in the Borderland? It's not just a tagline I throw out for the show, but really how I look at things, because say anything going on with, frankly, most of Abbott's border security, it's hard to pinpoint an actual impact here in the borderland. Frankly, the most impacting things that could happen around here from a state level would need to be happening on the New Mexico side of things. So while it's a interesting subject and one that is definitely going to play a part in this upcoming primary election and then definitely the general election, how it actually impacts us here, it's a little hard to end up getting to. So just kind of comes down to preference at that point, because even though some of the news partners we had out there when it came to those use of the border wall panels that were put up as surplus by the federal administration end up going to be used for the Texas construction, they put up a picture of El Paso, clearly one of our sections of the median, then up against looked like it was in the border highway section. Not actually going to be happening here, because fact of the matter is, even when there was the wall discussion going on, there's been a border barrier of some form or another in our area for literal decades at this point, which is why, amongst other things, some things previously said by candidates along the lines of a tear down the wall was not received that well by general audiences in our area, not even partisan audiences. Most people I talked to, most either persuasion, Democrat, Republican, or other, frankly, were thinking, yeah, I don't know if this is it, bud. So this is why I find it useful to, if you're really saying that you're going to call it stupidity wherever it is, let's actually call it out wherever it is. Because if you think it solely resides with one party or the other, I need you. I am begging you, and I really need you to look a little bit closer. And even those that you think that you sign up for, because as much as Leroy Chuck jokes about it, sometimes just look for the letter by the name, and that's the only vote. There are people who do that. And as much as I can find myself saying, well, at least they're voting, it's probably tantamount to my least favorite form of voting. I'd have to really rack my brain to figure out one I hate more, much less the, someone told me to vote this way and I'm doing it. No, I have no idea what they stand for. Low information voters in general are not my favorite. We'll fully agree with that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. But that's why we talk about these issues and having this discussion, this analysis. What we try to bring you on the show is what we try to do every weekday, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I think that's going to about do us here for today. Again, we got more subjects coming up for you on these elections. Keep checking in on those turnouts. On track for, probably not great, but better than it has been. But we got a lot more early voting to go. Last time I'll say it for this hour, make your plan to go vote and then execute it on it. Better yet, bring a friend. Someone that, I'm assuming you'd bring someone who agrees with you politically, but heck, just fill up the truck of voters that you got in your area, registered voters on the El Paso County rolls here, and let's rock this vote. Literally, we need it. That's it for us for today. Thank you for tuning in, however you did so, on air, online. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. You all really do help make this show what it is with your comments, your calls, your participation, because having that discussion, well, that's what makes the show unique and everything that comes with it. So stay safe out there, literally today. Look twice for more seconds when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. See you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That road closure remains on your way home. Remember, all 4 lanes are closed in the Low Valley on Socorro Road, east and westbound at Isaiah. The Liberty Expressway eastbound from Constitution to the Loop is slow, 10-minute delays. I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza, an accident with police on the scene. I-10 westbound at McRae Boulevard, look for another crash with police and EMS on the scene. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
It's Ram Truck Month at Silent Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down on your